being Cadet 13, or as his birth certificate reluctantly admitted, Zlots of the Paxian Nebula, was the kind of problem that made seasoned military instructors contemplate early retirement. Not because he was particularly evil, no, that would have been manageable. Evil had protocols. Evil had paperwork. Evil could be processed through the proper channels with the right forms submitted in triplicate. Zlots was worse. He was clever. For the love of all 7 celestial moons, what has he done now? Commander Graxon bellowed, his 4 eye stalks quivering with barely contained fury as he stormed into the Academy's central command hub. Lieutenant Pax Nor, whose unfortunate duty it was to monitor Cadet 13's daily infractions, didn't even look up from her terminal. Reprogrammed the nutrient dispensers to produce only items containing lactose, sir. Approximately 43% of the cadet population is currently experiencing gastrointestinal distress. Medical Bay is overwhelmed. Graxon's exoskeleton made an audible creaking sound as he slumped into his command chair. How? We upgraded the security algorithms after the last incident. He left a note, sir. Pax Nor's voice was professionally flat as she handed over a piece of actual physical paper, one of Zlots's many anachronistic affectations. It says, "Security patch had logical vulnerability. I fixed it for you after I was done. You're welcome. P.S. Might want to stock up on anti-digestive supplements. P.P.S. This is why I should be teaching the cybersecurity module." The Galactic Unified Defense Academy was, without question, the most prestigious military training facility in 7-star systems. It accepted only the most promising cadets from over 300 sentient species. Its graduates went on to command starships, lead planetary defense systems, and occasionally overthrow corrupt regimes, though this last achievement was carefully omitted from the recruitment brochures. And yet somehow this magnificent institution had found itself completely at the mercy of a single 6-limbed troublemaker from a backwater mining colony. His test scores? Graxon asked wearily, already knowing the answer. Top 2%, sir. Again. Disciplinary demerits? More than any cadet in the Academy's 87-year history, sir. By a factor of 11. Commander Graxon, who had personally led the defense of the Orion cluster against the Hive incursion with distinction and minimal casualties, but found himself completely defeated by a cadet who hadn't even grown his adult mandibles yet. I want him gone, Lieutenant. File the expulsion paperwork. Pax Nor's bioluminescent patches flickered in what her species considered a diplomatic cough. Sir, we've tried expelling him 4 times. Each time he's hacked the systems and reinstated himself before the paperwork cleared. Last time he somehow got himself promoted to honorary colonel for a week. Then what do you suggest? Graxon demanded, all 4 eyes focusing on her with laser intensity. The Council has approved an unconventional consultant, sir. They're sending an expert in handling problematic prodigies. Another stuffy Veldarian mind adept. The last one left in tears after Cadet 13 convinced him he was a potted plant. No, sir. This one's different. Pax Nor hesitated, which was notable because her species was genetically engineered to never show uncertainty. They're sending a human. The command hub went silent. Even the usual beeping of the monitoring stations seemed to pause. A what? Graxon whispered. A human, sir. From Earth. The Death World? Graxon's exoskeleton paled to a sickly blue. They're sending a Death Worlder to my academy? Why not just nuke the place and be done with it? The human arrives tomorrow, sir. Their credentials are impressive. Their survival is impressive, Graxon muttered. What kind of credentials could possibly? High school teacher, sir. From something called Chicago Public Schools. Graxon's eye stalks drooped in confusion, but something about Pax Nor's tone made him pause. And this is supposed to be good? According to the Council, sir, if anyone can handle Cadet 13, it's someone who's supervised human adolescence in an urban educational environment. Pax Nor's bioluminescence flickered with what might have been amusement. Apparently, they consider our situation, and I quote, cute. The entire administrative staff of the Galactic Unified Defense Academy lined up with military precision along the docking bay, their various appendages, tentacles, and manipulator limbs held at attention. The formal welcome was Commander Graxon's idea, a desperate attempt to impress upon the human the gravity of the situation. What emerged from the shuttle was underwhelming. Maya Powell stood approximately 5 in Earth measurements, with dark curly hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and wearing what appeared to be casual attire, dark blue pants made of some sturdy material, a simple button-up shirt, and flat-soled shoes. She carried one small bag over her shoulder. "That's it?" Cadet 13 whispered to his reluctant roommate, Cadet 42. They were observing from the cadet gallery above the docking bay, strictly against regulations. "That's the terrifying Death Worlder? She looks like she'd snap if I poked her with my third limb." "Shh," hissed 42, whose actual name was too full of liquid consonants for most species to pronounce. "Humans are unpredictable. My second progenitor says they drink poison for enjoyment." "Voluntary poison consumption? Ridiculous propaganda." Zlots rolled all 3 of his primary eyes. Down in the docking bay, Commander Graxon had extended his most formal greeting appendage toward the human. "Specialist Powell, welcome to Great Cosmos, what is that?" He leaped backward with surprising agility for his species, nearly knocking over 2 junior officers. From behind Maya's legs emerged a small, 4-legged creature covered in orange and white fur. It stretched languidly, displaying tiny but unmistakable fangs, and then sat down to casually lick one of its paws. "Oh, this is Captain Whiskers," Maya said with a casual wave of her hand. "Hope you don't mind, but my contract specifically mentioned accommodation for both of us. He goes where I go." "You brought a predator aboard an educational facility?" Graxon's voice modulator hit frequencies it wasn't designed for. Maya blinked. "He's just a cat, completely domesticated, though he might need a litter box. I wasn't sure what your facilities would be like." In the observation gallery, Cadet 13 was practically vibrating with glee. "Did you see that?" The commander almost molted his exoskeleton in fear. "Over a tiny furball." "Quiet. That furball has murder weapons attached to each limb," 42 whispered urgently. "Humans keep miniature apex predators as companions. Everyone knows this." "Everyone is being ridiculous," 13 scoffed. "Look at it. It's cleaning itself. Not exactly the behavior of a ruthless killing machine." Down below, the reception committee was maintaining a respectful distance from both the human and her cat, while Lieutenant Pax Nor nervously explained Academy protocols, her bioluminescent patches flashing with suppressed alarm every time the cat's gaze passed over her. "I've been briefed on my primary assignment," Maya was saying, somehow managing to sound both professional and slightly bored. Cadet 13. "Behavioral issues, high intelligence, potential discipline problem." "Potential is putting it very mildly," Graxon muttered. "The cadet has turned our entire educational system upside down. None of our corrective measures have had any effect." Maya smiled, a simple facial expression that nonetheless caused several junior officers to take involuntary steps backward. Human expressions were notoriously difficult to interpret, and many species found the displaying of teeth particularly alarming. "I've been teaching high school sophomores for 15 years, Commander. Trust me, I've seen worse." In the gallery, Zlots was already formulating 17 different plans to torment, humiliate, and ultimately drive away this soft, fangless creature who dared to think she could control him. He'd start with something simple, perhaps rerouting her quarter's atmospheric controls to produce a methane-rich environment. Humans were supposed to be sensitive to certain gaseous compounds. "This is going to be so easy," he said, mandibles clicking in what his species considered laughter. "I give her 2 days, maximum." As if hearing him, the small predator called Captain Whiskers suddenly looked up, staring directly at the hidden observation gallery with unnervingly focused golden eyes. And then, most disturbing of all, it made a small vocalizing sound that seemed to contain more menace than a fully armed battlecruiser. Meow. Zlots had outdone himself this time. The prank was, in his own humble opinion, a masterpiece of mischievous engineering. The classroom door had been subtly modified with a custom gravity plate that would activate the moment Maya Powell stepped through, inverting her personal gravitational field. The human would find herself suddenly falling upward, sticking to the ceiling like a confused insect. Nothing harmful, he wasn't a monster, just humiliating enough to establish dominance and show everyone who really ran things at the academy. He watched from his seat, mandibles twitching with anticipation as the classroom filled with cadets from 17 different species. His fellow students gave him a wide berth, familiar with the gleam in his three main eyes that signaled impending chaos. "Today is going to be legendary," he whispered to the reluctant Cadet 42, who had the misfortune of being assigned the seat next to him. "You're going to get us all in trouble." Again, 42 replied, his gill slits flaring in distress. The door slid open. Instead of the human, Captain Whiskers strolled in first, tail held high, surveying the classroom with imperial disdain. The cat stepped directly onto the modified gravity plate. Nothing happened. Dead. Zlots frowned. He'd triple-checked the calibrations. It should work on any organic life form. Perhaps the cat was too light to trigger. Maya Powell walked in, carrying a stack of actual physical papers and what appeared to be an ancient earth beverage container labeled coffee. "Don't even talk to me until I've finished this." She stepped onto the gravity plate. Nothing happened again. Zlots was so busy glaring at his malfunctioning trap that he didn't notice Maya stopping directly beside his desk. "Looking for this?" She held up a small electronic component between two fingers. "The primary activation relay for your gravity inverter. Found it this morning while Captain Whiskers was doing his security sweep." The classroom went deadly silent. Zlots's mandibles froze mid-twitch. "But how did you?" "Funny thing about teaching for 15 years, Maya continued, casually dropping the component into her pocket. "You develop a sixth sense for pranks. Also, you're not exactly subtle. Your electromagnetic signature lights up like a Christmas tree whenever you're tinkering with something you shouldn't." She turned to address the class, seemingly unconcerned with the fact that a student had just tried to turn her into a ceiling fixture. "Good morning, cadets. I'm Specialist Powell. This is Captain Whiskers, my teaching assistant." The cat had already claimed a sunny spot on the instructor's desk and was meticulously grooming its whiskers. "Today we'll be discussing unpredictability as a tactical advantage, with Cadet 13 having graciously volunteered to provide our first case study on how not to be unpredictable." A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the classroom. No instructor had ever called out Cadet 13 so directly before. "I didn't volunteer for anything," Zlots protested, his secondary arms crossing defensively. "Oh, but you did," Maya replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "The moment you decided to booby-trap my classroom, you volunteered to be today's object lesson. Now, who can tell me what Cadet 13 did wrong in his approach?" To Zlots's horror, several appendages, tentacles, and pincers shot up around the room. He underestimated his opponent, offered a Traxian cadet from the back. He left physical evidence of tampering, added another. He failed to account for the tactical advantage of having a felid companion with enhanced sensory capabilities, contributed a normally silent Vorlian. Maya nodded approvingly. "All excellent points. The most dangerous mistake in tactical planning is assuming you know what your opponent is capable of, especially when that opponent comes from an environment drastically different from your own." Throughout the lesson, Zlots noticed something disturbing. The cat's eyes never left him, and occasionally it would make a small noise, after which Maya would glance in its direction, and then continue her point with renewed focus. It was almost as if... "Are they communicating?" he whispered to 42, unable to keep the unease from his voice. "Everyone knows humans share a telepathic bond with their predator companions," 42 whispered back, as if this were common knowledge. After class, Zlats found himself uncharacteristically alone. Usually cadets would cluster around him, either seeking protection through association or hoping to witness his next spectacular act of rebellion. Today they gathered around Maya instead, peppering her with questions about Earth and human tactical doctrine. Even more disturbing, Captain Whiskers had somehow materialized next to him in the hallway, staring up with those unnerving golden eyes. "What are you looking at, furball?" Zlats muttered. The cat yawned, displaying an impressive set of sharp teeth, then sauntered away with a flick of its tail that somehow conveyed more disdain than a formal reprimand. Zlats had the unsettling feeling he'd just been evaluated and found wanting. 3 standard weeks into Maya Powell's tenure at the Academy, and Cadet 13 was losing his mind. "It's not possible," he hissed, pacing the maintenance tunnel where he'd set up his latest unauthorized workshop. "No sentient being could have detected that algorithm. I wrote it myself. It was perfect." His latest attempt to undermine the human's authority had been his most sophisticated yet. A subtle program inserted into the Academy's educational database that would scramble her lesson plans and replace key tactical concepts with nonsensical Earth references. The cadets would think she was either incompetent or insane. Instead, when he'd logged in to enjoy the chaos, he'd found his own personal Academy records displayed on every terminal in the classroom, including several embarrassing medical notes about his incomplete mandible development and his documented phobia of aquatic environments. "Looking for something?" Maya had asked, that infuriating smile on her face. "Your coding signature is quite distinctive, Cadet. Very elegant, but about as subtle as a supernova." The humiliation still burned through all 6 of his limbs. "Perhaps a more direct approach," Zlats muttered to himself, connecting wires to a small device. Physical pranks were beneath him, but he was getting desperate. The simple plan released dozens of lab-grown tissue samples, harmless but incredibly pungent to human olfactory systems, into the ventilation system during her next lecture. As he finished the timer mechanism, a soft sound made him freeze. Meow. Yent. Captain Whiskers sat at the entrance to the maintenance tunnel, watching him with unblinking golden eyes. "How did you get in here?" Zlats demanded, mandibles clicking in agitation. "This area is secured with biometric locks." The cat responded by grooming its paw with deliberate slowness. When Zlats attempted to activate his device the next day, he discovered all the tissue samples had been replaced with something labeled catnip. The lecture room erupted in laughter as the ventilation system released a pleasant herbal scent that caused Captain Whiskers to roll around in apparent ecstasy while Maya continued teaching as if nothing unusual was happening. "An excellent demonstration of converting an enemy's weapon for your own benefit," she noted, scratching the cat's belly as it purred loudly. "Thank you again for volunteering your resources, Cadet 13. By the 4th week, Zlats had moved from sophisticated to desperate. He reprogrammed cleaning drones to follow Maya and create small puddles in her path. He attempted to insert false emergency alerts into her personal communication device. He even tried the academic equivalent of a denial-of-service attack, submitting hundreds of nonsensical questions to overload her office hours. Nothing worked. Somehow she was always prepared, always one step ahead, always turning his pranks into teachable moments that left the other cadets impressed with her adaptability rather than questioning her competence. And always, that cat appeared moments before his plans fell apart. "It's spying on me," Zlats insisted to Cadet 42 in the dining facility, his food untouched as his eyes darted around searching for orange fur. "That creature is reporting back to her." "It's just a companion animal," 42 replied, though his gill slits fluttered nervously. Admittedly, a predatory one from a death world, but still just an animal. Then how does it always know? How does it get through secured doors? How does it appear exactly when my plans are about to succeed? Zlotz's voice had taken on a slightly manic edge. 42 shifted uncomfortably. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm joining Specialist Powell's new study group. It's this Earth concept where students get together to review material and help each other learn. Your what? Zlotz's third eye swiveled to stare at 42 in disbelief. Most of the cadets in our cohort have joined already. Her teaching methods are effective. My comprehension scores have increased by 23%. Zlotz couldn't believe his auditory receptors. You're abandoning me for some soft-skinned alien and her tactical philosophy of teamwork, mutual support. She calls it having each other's backs. 42 stood up, collecting his tray. Maybe you should try it sometime. You're the smartest cadet here, Zlotz. Imagine what you could accomplish if you worked with us instead of against everyone. Left alone at the table, Zlotz brooded over this betrayal until a flash of orange caught his peripheral vision. Captain Whiskers had somehow materialized on the table directly in front of him, sitting directly on his meal tray. What do you want now? Zlotz demanded, past caring who heard him talking to an animal. The cat tilted its head, as if considering the question seriously. Then it did something truly alarming. It pushed Zlotz's communicator device across the table with one paw. The screen displayed a message that made his exoskeleton prickle with cold dread. Tactical assessment. Your current strategy is ineffective. Adaptation required MP. When Zlotz looked up, the cat was gone, leaving only a single orange hair on his tray as evidence it had ever been there. Desperate times called for desperate measures. After 6 standard weeks of humiliation, Zlotz did something truly unthinkable. He went to the Academy library, voluntarily, outside of assigned research hours. The library AI seemed genuinely startled by his presence. Cadet 13. This is unprecedented. How may I assist you? I need information. Everything we have on humans. Their planet, their biology, their history, especially their relationship with smaller predatory species. Accessing xenobiology database, the AI responded. Please note that some information on Earth species is classified as disturbing content and requires special clearance. Override. Academic research exemption, subsection 47B. Zlotz had memorized the Academy's information access codes during his first week. They had come in handy for various unauthorized activities. Very well. Preparing data compilation on species Homo sapiens, planet designation Earth. What followed was the most disturbing educational experience of Zlotz's life. Earth wasn't just classified as a death world. It was the death world against which all others were measured. A planet with such extreme environmental variations that its native species had evolved terrifying adaptability just to survive. This can't be right, Zlotz muttered, staring at the atmospheric composition data. Oxygen levels that high would be corrosive to most life forms. And the gravity readings they evolved under constant pressure nearly double the galactic standard? The revelations kept coming. Humans could survive temperature variations that would kill most sentient species. They could lose significant portions of their bodily fluids and recover. They could have entire limbs removed and continue functioning. Some could hold their breath underwater for periods that defied biological logic. Most disturbing of all was their psychological profile. Humans thrived on challenge. They sought out danger for recreation. They deliberately exposed themselves to physical stress to become stronger. Masochistic tendencies on a species-wide scale, noted one xenobiologist's report. The human concept of fun often correlates with what other species categorize as traumatic experience to be avoided at all costs. Zlotz's third eye twitched uncontrollably as he accessed the section on Earth's historical conflicts. The scale of human warfare, their technological progression, the sheer inventiveness of their weapons development. "Sweet mother of moons," he whispered, mandibles hanging slack as he read about something called the nuclear age. But the true horror came when he reached the section on human-animal relationships. Domestic cats, classified as Felis catus, weren't just pets. They were descended from dedicated predators that humans had selectively bred for companionship while maintaining most of their hunting instincts. Cats possess 18 retractable claws, can see in near total darkness, and can detect movement from up to 30 meters away, he read aloud, his voice trembling. Their bite can exert pressure sufficient to sever major blood vessels, and they retain the instinct to target the throat and spine of prey. A new file appeared on his screen, Human-Feline Cohabitation, a study in predatory symbiosis. Humans are the only known sentient species to deliberately share living quarters with apex predators, the report began. While they classify these animals as pets or companions, extensive observation suggests a more complex relationship. Many xenobiologists theorize that cats and humans formed a mutual partnership thousands of years ago based on complementary hunting abilities. Attached was security footage from an Earth observation post. A human settlement experiencing something called a mouse infestation. The cats systematically hunting down the smaller creatures with ruthless efficiency. The humans rewarding the cats with food, shelter, and physical affection. A mutually beneficial arrangement between predator species. The next file contains something even more chilling, historical evidence suggesting that early humans had partnered with even larger predators called wolves, selectively breeding them into dogs that formed hunting packs with humans. Humans do not merely tolerate dangerous species, one report concluded. They actively seek partnership with them. This capacity to form alliances with natural killers may explain humanity's rapid dominance of their planet, despite their relative physical fragility compared to Earth's other apex predators. Zlotz leaned back, his exoskeleton feeling suddenly too tight. All these weeks, he'd been antagonizing not just any alien but a Deathworlder who kept a specialized hunting predator as a constant companion. A niggling memory surfaced, something Maya had said during her first lecture. On Earth we have a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight that matters, but the size of the fight in the dog. At the time he'd dismissed it as nonsensical alien babbling. Now, understanding what a dog actually was, the saying took on a much more ominous meaning. A soft thump made him nearly jump out of his exoskeleton. Captain Whiskers had somehow materialized on the table beside him, those unnerving golden eyes examining the screen displaying cat anatomical diagrams. "You've been watching me this whole time, haven't you?" Zlotz whispered. The cat blinked slowly, a gesture that Zlotz now understood was not casual at all but a deliberate communication signal between felines. "What do you want from me?" His voice had risen to an embarrassing pitch. Captain Whiskers stood, stretched languidly, then deliberately stepped onto Zlotz's datapad. The screen changed, displaying a file Zlotz hadn't accessed. Earth Educational Methodologies, Case Study of Chicago Public Schools System. The cat looked from the screen to Zlotz, tail swishing deliberately. A terrible understanding began to dawn. The human hadn't been brought to the academy despite being from a death world. She had been brought to the academy precisely because she was from a death world. And her cat wasn't just a pet. It was a highly evolved predator working in partnership with her. Zlotz was in way over his half-grown mandibles. Despite his newfound knowledge of human capabilities, Zlotz couldn't let it go. Something deep in his six-limbed psychology refused to accept defeat. If anything, learning the truth about Maya Powell had only intensified his determination. Yes, she was a Deathworlder with a predator companion. But he was Cadet 13, the most brilliant troublemaker in Academy history, and he would not be outdone by a soft-skinned Biped and her furry sidekick. His plan was elegant in its simplicity. The Academy's training simulator was designed to create immersive tactical scenarios for cadets, complete with sensory feedback and realistic environmental conditions. As an advanced programming student, Zlats had access to the simulator's underlying code. He'd spent 3 sleepless nights creating a specialized simulation, Earth Urban Educational Crisis. The scenario would place Maya in a simulated Earth classroom filled with teenage humans programmed to be completely unmanageable based on the most disruptive behaviors Zlats could imagine. The simulation would record her inevitable failure to maintain order, providing concrete evidence of her incompetence. "This time, there's no way she can turn it around," he muttered as he finalized the code. "Even a Deathworlder has limits." On the day of Maya's scheduled simulator evaluation, Commander Graxon and half the Academy's senior staff assembled in the observation room. Maya Powell's performance was to be assessed as part of her continued employment. Zlats had made sure word spread throughout the Academy. The viewing gallery was packed with cadets eager to see the human instructor in action. Maya entered the simulator chamber looking irritatingly unconcerned. Captain Whiskers had been barred from the test. Simulator safety protocols prohibited non-sentient lifeforms, which gave Zlats a small measure of comfort. Initiating simulation sequence, announced the simulator AI, Earth Urban Educational Environment, difficulty level, maximum. Zlats settled in, mandibles twitching in anticipation. He'd programmed the teen humans to be utterly impossible throwing objects, shouting contradictions to every statement, refusing all instructions. Some would even simulate Earth intoxication behaviors. The environment included malfunctioning temperature controls, background construction noise, and intermittent power failures. Perfect chaos. For the first few minutes, everything proceeded according to plan. The simulated classroom descended into disorder. Maya attempted standard instructional techniques that were immediately overwhelmed by the cacophony of teenage rebellion. Graxon leaned toward his lieutenant. "Is this accurate? Earth educational environments can't possibly be this chaotic." "Actually, sir, according to our research, this is somewhat restrained," Pax Noor replied, her bioluminescence pulsing with discomfort. Suddenly, Maya stopped trying to restore order. Instead, she calmly walked to the simulated classroom's environmental controls and began adjusting settings. Zlats frowned. That wasn't in his programming. The environmental controls were supposed to be malfunctioning, not. A warning light flashed on the simulator control panel. Anomalous code detected. The simulator AI announced, "Simulation parameters exceeding safety protocols." "What's happening?" demanded Graxon. The technician looked bewildered. She's somehow overridden the environmental safeguards. "The simulator is attempting to create actual Earth atmospheric conditions." Zlats's smug expression faltered. That wasn't possible. The simulator had hard-coded safety limits to prevent dangerous environments from being generated. Inside the chamber, Maya continued calmly adjusting controls as the simulated classroom began to shimmer and distort around her. "Emergency shutdown," ordered Graxon. "Terminate the simulation." "System unresponsive," the technician replied, mandibles clicking in distress. "The simulator is locked in a feedback loop." The observation room's monitors showed environmental readings that made even seasoned space travelers blanch, oxygen levels rising to Earth norms, gravity increasing to 1.1 G, temperature fluctuating wildly. "We need to extract her before," Graxon began. A loud mechanical groan cut him off as the simulator's primary power coupling overloaded in a shower of sparks. Emergency lights bathed the observation room in pulsing red. "Containment breach in simulator chamber," the Academy's central AI announced. "Emergency protocols activated. All personnel evacuate Section 7 immediately." The viewing gallery erupted in panic as cadets rushed for the exits. "What have you done?" Graxon rounded on Zlats, eye stalks quivering with fury. I didn't. This isn't for once. Cadet 13 was speechless. On the monitors, they could see that the simulator was now generating actual environmental hazards. Parts of the chamber glowed with electrical discharge, while others filled with smoke from overheating components. The entire simulator network is compromised, a technician shouted. It's cascading through Academy systems. Life support for this section will fail in approximately 12 minutes. In the chaos of evacuation, no one noticed Zlotz slipping away from the observation room. He had to fix this. Whatever had gone wrong, it was his code, his responsibility. He knew the simulator systems better than anyone. He could stop the cascade failure if he could reach the main control junction. The access corridor to the simulator core was already filling with acrid smoke when he reached it. Emergency barriers were beginning to close, but he managed to slide under the final door just before it sealed. Inside the core junction, environmental conditions were deteriorating rapidly. The air felt thick, gravity seemed to press down on him with unusual force, and the temperature was rising to levels that made his exoskeleton feel brittle. Just like a real death world, he muttered, forcing himself toward the central control panel. As he reached for the emergency override, a power surge sent a blast of energy through the system. The control panel exploded in a shower of components, knocking Zlotz backward. Pain lanced through his secondary left limb as he crashed into a support strut. The room tilted around him. Warning klaxons blared in the distance, barely audible through the ringing in his auditory receptors. He was trapped in a failing section of the Academy, surrounded by increasingly hostile environmental conditions, injured and entirely alone, and it was all his own fault. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd created a trap for the Death Worlder, only to find himself caught in it instead. Not how I planned to graduate, Zlotz wheezed as the environmental systems continued to fail around him. The simulator core was rapidly becoming a perfect replica of that death world Zlotz had been researching. Temperature rising. Atmosphere deteriorating. Gravity crushing. Pain definitely real. He tried to drag himself toward the secondary control panel, but his injured limb refused to cooperate. A series of small explosions from overloading circuits sent debris raining down around him. One particularly large piece of ceiling panel crashed down just centimeters from his head. I really should have just attended the classes like a normal cadet, he wheezed to himself. A loud bang echoed through the chamber as an access panel on the far wall burst inward. Through the swirling smoke, Zlotz could make out a silhouette that seemed impossibly small for the situation at hand. Maya Powell crawled through the opening, a breathing apparatus strapped to her face and what appeared to be a simple fabric bag slung across her body. She surveyed the chaotic scene with a quick, efficient glance that somehow reminded Zlotz of a tactical assessment. Found him, she called back through the opening, her voice muffled by the mask. To Zlotz's astonishment, Captain Whiskers leapt through the access panel next, wearing nothing at all to protect against the deteriorating environment. The cat's pupils were fully dilated, giving it an even more predatory appearance as it bounded effortlessly through the debris. "You came for me," Zlotz croaked, unable to process this development. "Why?" Maya ignored the question, kneeling beside him and examining his injured limb with practiced movements. Compound fracture of the exoskeletal support structure. "Can you move your primary appendages?" Zlotz demonstrated that he could. "Good. I'm going to splint this, and then we need to move fast. Environmental control cascade is accelerating." She pulled supplies from her bag with methodical efficiency. Whiskers perimeter check. The cat immediately began prowling the chamber's edges, examining each potential exit or danger point with disturbing intelligence. As Maya worked on his injury, Zlotz noticed something odd. While he was struggling to breathe the increasingly toxic air, she seemed merely inconvenienced. Her movements remained precise and controlled, despite the rising temperature and gravity. How are you functioning in these conditions? He asked. This is nothing. Try teaching summer school in Chicago with broken air conditioning during a heat wave. She finished securing a makeshift splint to his limb. Gravity's only about 20% above what I'm used to. A sharp cracking sound drew their attention upward. A support beam was giving way, threatening to bring down a significant portion of ceiling directly above them. Time to go, Maya said, hauling Zlots to his feet with surprising strength. Whiskers. Exit route? The cat meowed urgently from across the room, where it had found a maintenance shaft. Just as they began moving toward it, the support beam failed completely. Zlots watched in horror as tons of ceiling material began descending toward them in what seemed like slow motion. What happened next would forever change his understanding of humans. Maya shoved him clear with unexpected force, placing herself directly in the path of the falling debris. Instead of being crushed, however, she executed a series of movements too fast for Zlots to follow, dodging the largest pieces while deflecting others with her forearms. "Move," she shouted. Zlots scrambled toward the maintenance shaft, his injured limb screaming in protest. Another section of ceiling collapsed, blocking his path and trapping him in a rapidly shrinking pocket of space. That's when Captain Whiskers launched into action. The cat moved like a fluid predator, leaping through narrow gaps in the debris, navigating a path that seemed impossible. It reached Zlots and began pulling at his uniform with its teeth, urging him toward a different route. Zlots followed, crawling through a narrow passage formed by collapsed beams, the cat somehow always just ahead, guiding him through the chaos with unerring precision. They emerged into a smaller control room where Maya was already waiting, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead but otherwise appearing untroubled by their brush with death. "How did you get here before us?" Zlots gasped. "Humans are good at finding paths through chaos," she replied, already working on the control panel. "Comes from evolving on a planet that's constantly trying to kill you." She bypassed the security protocols with surprising ease and began entering commands. This should stop the cascade. Whiskers, the red wire bundle behind panel C7. The cat immediately jumped to a nearby wall panel, somehow knowing exactly which one she meant, and used its claws to pry it open. Once exposed, it bit through precisely the red bundle of wires Maya had indicated. The room's emergency lights shifted from red to blue, and the crushing gravity began to ease. "System reset initiated," Maya announced. "We have about 2 minutes to reach the evacuation point before the final safety purge." She helped Zlots up again, supporting his weight as they made their way through the now stabilizing maintenance corridors, Captain Whiskers always slightly ahead, but seemingly scouting the route. "Why did you come back for me?" Zlots finally managed to ask as they approached the evacuation point. "After everything I did?" Maya looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "You were in danger. You needed help. But I tried to sabotage you. I could have gotten you killed." "You're my student," she said with a shrug, as if that explained everything. "Besides, nobody gets left behind. That's just what we do." "That's just what humans do," Zlots corrected, finally understanding. Maya smiled. "Now you're getting it." Captain Whiskers meowed in what sounded suspiciously like approval. "Cadet 13, your tactical assessment simulation scores are unprecedented," Commander Graxon announced, all 4 eye stalks focused intently on his datapad. In fact, they're the highest in Academy history. 3 standard months had passed since the simulator incident. The Academy had mostly recovered, though certain sections still smelled faintly of smoke and the occasional maintenance drone would malfunction while muttering something about Earth normal gravity conditions. Zlots stood at perfect attention, his newly grown mandibles polished to a regulation shine. "Thank you, Commander." "More surprising is your conduct record." Graxon scrolled through the datapad with an expression of lingering disbelief. 0 infractions since the incident. 12 commendations for assisting fellow cadets, and a special citation for revolutionizing the Academy's cybersecurity protocols? Just closing some loopholes I was previously exploiting, sir. Zlotz's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. From her position beside the commander, Maya Powell nodded approvingly. Captain Whiskers, perched on her shoulder like some furry epaulet, blinked slowly at Zlotz in what he now recognized as a gesture of feline respect. Specialist Powell tells me you've been instrumental in implementing her new training methodologies, Graxon continued. Something called peer-to-peer learning networks? Just applying the human concept of teamwork to our educational protocols, sir. Efficiency has increased 47%, and cadet satisfaction metrics are at an all-time high. The transformation of Cadet 13 had become something of an Academy legend. The once notorious Troublemaker was now Maya Powell's star pupil and most vocal advocate. Where he had once used his considerable intelligence to create chaos, he now channeled it into improving systems and helping others. Most shocking of all to his fellow cadets was his relationship with Captain Whiskers. The same creature that had once terrified him could now often be found curled up on Zlotz's study desk, purring contentedly while the cadet worked on tactical simulations. Well, graduation is approaching, and as our top student, you'll have your pick of assignments, Graxon said, closing the datapad. The Diplomatic Corps has expressed interest, as has Galactic Security. There's even an opening on my personal staff that would suit your capabilities. Actually, sir, I've already submitted my assignment request, Zlotz replied. Oh? And what post could possibly interest our most promising graduate? Earth, sir. I've applied for the cultural exchange program with their educational system. A silence descended on the office, broken only by what sounded suspiciously like a snort of amusement from Maya. Earth? Graxon's exoskeleton paled slightly. The Death World? You want to go to the actual planet where humans evolved? Voluntarily? Yes, sir. I believe there's much we can learn from them, particularly their educational methodologies. And their cats, added Maya with a small smile. Indeed. Zlotz nodded solemnly. I've been conducting additional research on human-feline relationships. Did you know that despite humans believing they domesticated cats, substantial evidence suggests the cats actually domesticated them? They appear to have manipulated humans into providing food, shelter, and protection while offering minimal practical services in return. The ultimate tactical victory, Maya confirmed, scratching Captain Whiskers under the chin. Convince your opponent that serving you was their idea all along. The cat purred thunderously, golden eyes half closed in apparent satisfaction. A most insidious species, Zlotz agreed with new appreciation. I look forward to studying them in their natural habitat. As they left the commander's office, Captain Whiskers leapt smoothly from Maya's shoulder to Zlotz's, settling around his neck like a living collar. He's giving you his approval for the Earth assignment, Maya explained. That, or claiming you as his territory. With cats, it's hard to tell the difference. I am honored either way, Zlotz replied with complete sincerity. Though I must ask, in all your years working with these creatures, have you ever truly understood who's in charge? Maya laughed, a sound that had once annoyed Zlotz but now filled him with a strange warmth. Oh, we humans figured that out thousands of years ago. We just pretend we're in control because it makes us feel better. Captain Whiskers yawned widely, displaying his impressive teeth before gently headbutting Zlotz's mandible in what could only be described as affectionate ownership. Somewhere in the vast, endless cosmos, the universe itself seemed to nod in agreement. On any world, in any galaxy, no matter how advanced the civilization, one truth remained constant: cats always win.